So the best thing about the worst game is something that probably comes from what many consider to be the worst game ever, and that's Fallout 76. Some people might say that there is nothing to praise about that game in the slightest, but I disagree. I have said this multiple times before, that I believe 76 was produced in the first place with good intentions. It was just forced out the door way too early and subsequently failed for it, but I don't stand by that the game is outright bad. Yes, it's very different from Fallout that people know and love. I get that completely. The leveling system's really strange. The world is very different, not necessarily in a bad way. That we'll get to. The perk card stuff is a bit naff. The lack of NPCs at launch before Wastelanders was a bit rubbish as well. But the good thing, the best thing about Fallout 76 for me was the fact that I got to be back in a Fallout world. That's something that you can't shake a stick at, in my opinion. Being back in this post-apocalyptic, retro-futuristic world that only Fallout can pull off. The Outer Worlds was good, but it didn't give me that same kind of vibe that Fallout did. Spending hundreds of hours in Fallout 4, I thoroughly enjoyed. People already have problems with that as well, but that's not the point. I loved being within that world. I liked soaking up the local colour of the capital, not the capital wasteland, that's Fallout 3, the Commonwealth. Like, I got to experience that again with Fallout 76 in Appalachia, and that's something that you shouldn't shake a stick at. There are lots of things about that game that I agree are wrong. I'm not going to say the game is outright good, but that is something that I will always hold Fallout 76 not necessarily dear, but it's something I'll always refer to when the conversation comes up again about Fallout 76 being outright trash across the board. At the end of the day, I had fun with it when I played solo. I had fun with it when I played with friends. If it's not your kind of thing because you want an original Fallout experience, go play 3 or New Vegas or 4. If you want to just be back in a Fallout world, 76 is fun, and I will stand by that, even if many of you might disagree with me. But I loved being back in a Fallout world. Don't shake a stick at being in a Fallout wasteland. It's always good.
Right, so I've got my finger on the pulse, I've got my finger on the button, I've got my ear to the grapevine, I'm listening out to the wavelengths, and the world has told me that Aliens Colonial Marines is a bad game. One of the worst, many argue. One of the worst games out there in the world, which I think is unfair, but you know, you gotta listen, you gotta learn. So, Aliens Colonial Marines as one of the worst games. What are the best things about it? Well, that is why I am here today. Basically, there's not a lot that saves this game because it is terrible. I am aware of that. As much as I joke about it, yes, it's a bad game. There's lots of problems with it, lots of flaws, but a diamond in the rough it still is, because the concept is such a good one that they could build such a good game around. And yeah, they fumbled the bag with this one, but the concept of living out your James Cameron Aliens dreams as a Colonial Marine, going around shooting up xenomorphs, is absolutely golden. And you know, having a little taste of that, I think, is just, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Having that out there in the world to go, oh, we could do that better, let's try that again. Yes, please. I'm glad that they had a go with it, and I'm glad I experienced that trial and error. And also, the best thing about the worst game is also that you got gifted all the memes. You got so many memes from this game. You got the dancing xenomorph, like, what more could you want? Best thing about the worst game is you have a bit of fun. It's like Andromeda with all the mashed up faces and the WWE games. Look, memes, they're the gift that keeps on giving. That was what this game gives you. Colonial Marines is the gift of memes. Colonial memes. Colonial meme Marines. Drop the mic. I don't have a mic. I'm not even wearing a mic, I'm just shouting this into the camera, so yeah, the mic's off. Word.
Best thing from the worst video game, I'm going to have to address it. I'm going to have to talk about it. I'm going to have to bring it out into the light and talk about it in a forum that isn't dominated by 5-year-olds. I'm going to talk about Fortnite because you've got to admire it. Now, I don't play Fortnite. I did back when it first came out, when I got caught up in the whole wave of it and everything. And occasionally I go back to it sort of every once a year or something, just out of sheer curiosity, because it never seems to go away. And the best thing about that is just how incredibly effective every single part of its rollout has been. I mean, look at the runaway success of it, the amount of money that Epic have made, considering all they did was rip off PUBG and put a video out saying that's what they were doing. Like, hey, we love a bit of Battle Royale, we're going to do our version of it, even though Fortnite itself is whatever the hell they call that main mode. Everyone always forgets that Fortnite is this main zombie horde mode mode thing, and Battle Royale is on the side. But the amount that they've managed to run with it, the cartoony graphics, the general sort of ease of playing it, the idea of building some stuff, kind of taps a little bit into the Minecraft demographic, and then using all that money to do the Epic Game Store, and they're away. It's completely transformed who Epic were. And for me, someone who grew up with the Epic name being associated with Unreal Tournament and Gears of War, it is ludicrous to see this, spin-off one person's idea thing just become this completely dominating mainstream media. So it's got to be Fortnite. I think it's every aspect of Fortnite other than playing it, because I'm never going to sit and play it. I just don't like Battle Royales that much. And it's, even on the gameplay side, there's just not enough options, tactical options, stop, drop, roll, climbing, whatever that I would want to have. So I'm not enjoying the actual game itself, but you've just got to admire it. It's ludicrously effective.
So for me, the best thing from the worst video game has to be Illusia the Snake from Resident Evil 6, because Resident Evil 6 sucked. It was not a great game, it's the worst in the entire series, but Illusia the Snake boss took me back to going against Yawn in the Resident Evil remaster, which was one of the best bosses, I think. It's one of those bosses that came out of nowhere. There's a lot of mutated sort of animals and bugs in Resident Evil series, and the snake was definitely a scary one. Like, I'm not exactly, in love with snakes, I don't mind them, but having this massive snake just slither around the room and go up into the rafters, it was scary. And so to come across a boss that really took us back to a good Resi game just made Resident Evil 6 finally feel like a Resi game, which it just didn't. It didn't feel like you were playing Resident Evil. It just was not the same. It didn't kind of fit into the genre anymore. It was kind of this run and shoot sort of first person shooter game all of a sudden. It just didn't seem to fit in. So having this invisible snake Illusia come out of nowhere was just all of a sudden, yes, this is what it should have been. This is what Resident Evil 6 should have consisted of, is these mutated bosses, and having her be invisible as well was just terrifying. Like, the only time that you could actually see Illusia was when she opened up her mouth to attack you, and it was just terrifying, and it just brought back so many good memories of Yawn, and I loved it. It was the only point in the game where I was like, yes, this is Resident Evil, and then as soon as it was over, it was over. It was just back to, oh no, it's Resident Evil 6. Oh well.
Okay, video game fans notoriously cannot agree on anything, but I think the one thing we can all maybe come to agreement on is the fact that Star Wars Kinect was the dog's dinner. It wasn't a very good game, and probably because it promised far too much. It promised the idea that you could be in real-life immersive lightsaber battles, and all you had to do was kind of match the actions of the person on screen and engage in these cool duels, but obviously that didn't work, and you were just sort of flailing around hoping the Kinect would just pick anything up. But also it had this Just Dance style minigame that everyone hated at the time and thought was the worst thing to happen to Star Wars and possibly gaming at large, because it had characters like Lando Calrissian and Han Solo, in the Just Dance kind of setup where you had to move your body and match the actions on screen, and dancing to pop songs. But they weren't just any pop songs, they were actually remixed versions specifically for this game with new lyrics. And these are art. These are great. These are honestly, genuinely amazing. Specifically, the song Han Solo, which is a kind of parody, I guess. It's more inspired by Jason Derulo's Raiden Solo, which is also iconic. And back in the day, this was the worst thing to ever happen to anything, because, look at the state of it. Look at what have they done to Star Wars? That was the general sentiment. But honestly, all this mode has done is grown me over time, especially this song. It's to the point where I could probably name every single lyric in the song Han Solo. So the chorus goes, I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes, I'm jumping in my ride, I'm heading out tonight, I'm solo, I'm Han Solo. Imagine, going out to a club when you're a young man like I was in university, and you've got that on beforehand, you'll have all the confidence in the world. I am Han Solo. And because I've obviously listened to the clean version of this track, which I think it's a separate version to what the actual dance track was in the song, you get this you get this lovely breakdown, this lovely chef's kiss little instrumental thing towards the end where essentially he just repeats the name Solo over and over again. And honestly, it's incredible. I'm trying to remember how it goes. I think it's like S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh. So the tragedy is we can't play any of this music, I don't think, because it will be instantly copyright struck, but I genuinely love this mode and this song specifically, and honestly, Star Wars Connect might be the worst game ever made, but as long as we got this specific gem from it, I'm alright with it. You know, make more. Make this the only version of Star Wars that we have from now on. I'd be totally fine with it. Release it as a single, get it to the top of the Billboard charts. Just do it. Give me it. Give me it signed. Because I love it. S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-S-O-L-O-L-O.